Welcome, trainers, to our second season playing through each Pokemon generation. We have already conquered the Kanto region and are now making our way through the Johto region. My name is Chris. I'm the last trainer, and I'm playing Pokemon Crystal. I am also joined by my two fellow co-hosts.
My name is Sean. I'm the Fire Breather trainer, and I'm playing Pokemon Gold.
And my name is Dustin. I'm the Gentleman trainer, and I'm playing Pokemon Silver.
And we are known as the Trainer Trio. In our last episode, we acquired the Plain Badge by beating Whitney and her very obnoxiously tough Miltank. In this episode, we're going to talk about a couple things we had to do to get out of Goldenrod City, go through Route 35, the National Park, Routes 36 and 37, and then end up in Ecruteak and all the little things that are inside Ecruteak City, including gym number 4. You guys ready to jump into it?
Let's get jumping, Chris.
Let's do it. I know the last episode I have that many notes on Goldenrod City, and we did find out I didn't do that much. So I finally did start to do some of those things. I did take one note inside of the Poke Center inside of Goldenrod City, which I don't think I did last episode, so apologies. But one of the NPCs inside there, they say that there are Pokemon types for a reason, and no single Pokemon is the strongest. I was just thinking, like, wow, like, this NPC never met Mewtwo, because I feel like Mewtwo is definitely one of the strongest Pokemon. But maybe not now. Who knows what the Johto legendaries, what do you guys think?
I mean, honestly, it's probably still a tie between Mewtwo and Alakazam with the strongest Pokemon, even in this generation, because they're just so overpowered in these first two generations.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of funny. I'm like thinking about it. I'm like, are they trying to also make an argument that all Pokemon types are good and bad in their own ways? Because trust me, I've tried to use like bug types and everything, and unless you're using a Heracross, this is not that easy.
Yeah, not all types are made the same. I don't believe this guy.
Well, I mean, they said like there are Pokemon types for a reason, and no single one is the strongest. But there are definitely some that could be considered the weakest, I think.
And if we're talking Generation 1, Psychic type is the strongest. There's a reason we have Dark type now.
Yep, overcorrection.
All right, that was it from Goldenrod from me. How about you guys? Was there anything else you're able to do currently?
The only thing that has changed for me is I added my Slowpoke back into my party, and he is probably going to be now a official team member.
Exciting.
I also added some team members this episode that I will talk about, but I dropped 2 of them, unfortunately. Hootie, my Noctowl, which finally evolved, I had to drop because I just felt like this was getting too redundant of a mediocre player. I already had my normal type. I also dropped Pinolo the Pineco because my whole strategy was to have this Pokemon that's kind of really defensive, hard to use, and I found out that it could have some competitive viability when battling you guys. But other than that, it was going to be not fun to use during the game, not good moves, and it just was not fun training it. So I did leave Pinolo in the daycare, though, to potentially get to level 30 and evolve to Fortress. Hootie, on the other hand, is gone. I really wanted Hootie and the Blowfish as in a Noctowl and a Quillfish, but that neither materialized, so oh well.
You're not missing out on much because they're not the greatest Pokemons, either of them.
But Hootie and the Blowfish, come on. So yes, drop 2 Pokemon. I will be adding 2 more, and I will talk about them later.
So the last gym we faced, we only had 3 Pokemon. This upcoming one will have 4 Pokemon, which is exciting. I also went the same route as Chris, where I've only kept my Croconaw in my party and dropped my Geodude. I didn't really like Geodude that much, even though he literally carried me the last gym. Actually, last 2 gyms. But I just really wanted to remove him because he's not my style of Pokemon. And then I did have to make the hard choice to remove Furret.
Oh no.
So that was a sad choice. Obviously, he wasn't the best in our battles, but he was fun to use like in the wild.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to see which Pokemon you guys both add to your team because alright, so you already know my team because I added the Slowpoke and nothing else changed.
Oh man, still have Onyx.
I'm keeping Onyx until I get the Steelix. If he's trash as a Steelix, I will be very sad, but I'm stubborn.
So other than that, I know that we had to get a squirt bottle to move forward in Goldenrod City. And I know that in Pokemon Crystal, they make it that much more annoying where after I beat Whitney, I then have to go to the flower shop, talk to the lady. The lady's sister is out on Route 35, I believe it is. Then I have to talk to the sister, then go back to the flower shop, and then they give me that squirt bottle. And if I'm correct, I don't think it was that difficult for you guys.
I don't remember having to do that much.
From what I remember, you just talk to the lady in the flower shop and then you're able to do it.
Why did they make it so difficult for Crystal? Why did they make me leave and come back into Goldenrod?
Not make you work for it, Chris.
Yeah, you get all the more extra Pokemon, you know, so this is your punishment.
It's extra content for you, Chris.
There's one errand you guys could run for one of the border guards. That's inside of going up to Route 35, I believe. Did you guys do that? Basically take a message?
I did not.
So we're talking about getting the Spearow named Kenya, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got it, and I wanted to put Kenya back in the box or something, or maybe take the mail. And when you try and do that, it sends it to the PC, and if you open it up, it deletes the message. Whatever I did, I completely screwed it all up so that when I tried to give the mail back to the Spearow and then present it to the hiker that is east of Violet City, he was like, that's not my Pokemon and that's not my mail. I don't know what you're talking about. So I did confirm that I soft locked myself out of getting that reward.
Peeking at the mail? Someone else's written mail, Chris? I can't do that.
That's illegal, Chris.
It was such an accident. And I was like, oh, I can definitely fix this, right? Nope. No, I couldn't.
Yeah, when I first went through this, originally I turned him down because I did have a party of 6 Pokemon and wanted to train them up. But eventually later on, I did come back and deliver it, which you do get TM50 Nightmare if you do it.
Very interesting. Yep, I missed all that. I did not participate.
I think it was kind of good that they did that little fetch quest there because I think it was a good way to teach people that essentially once you open up the path with your squirt bottle that you can go back to Violet City easily and back around town. So it was kind of like, hey, we opened up the map for you. Go explore and realize that.
So just specifically on Route 35 then, do you guys have any stories there?
There was one trainer, Juggler Erwin, who was shown juggling a lot of Pokeballs, and he actually had quite a lot of Pokemon. And they're all Voltorbs, and the first one was level 2. And I was like, wow, you're bringing out a level 2 Pokemon at this stage in the game against me? So I thought that was quite surprising.
I wrote down that exact same note.
I remember that. I didn't write down any notes, but I remember fighting him and him throwing out a level 2 Voltorb. I'm like, what?
Otherwise, I did capture a couple Pokemon on this route, and one of them was Ditto, which we can go into Pokedex highlight. Which Ditto's Pokedex for Pokemon Silver reads, the transformation is perfect unless you make it laugh. It can't maintain its disguise. And I thought the wording in this was quite interesting because they basically word it it maintains a disguise when it transforms instead of actually transforming into a different Pokemon.
It's like in the anime how there's one Ditto that I remember it transforms, but it can't get its derpy little Ditto face off of it.
I don't know if this was official Pokemon product or not, but I remember seeing an art piece of someone doing Where's Waldo, except with that Ditto specifically. So you'd see a bunch of Pokemon, and then one of them had the derpy face, and so you had to find it. It's Where's Ditto? You had to try and find it.
Oh, I need to find that art.
I have a story on Route 35 about me encountering a very rare Pokemon. My very first encounter on the route was a Yanma.
Wow.
For those of you who don't know, Yanma is a 1% encounter chance. So literally my first encounter is a Yanma. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. So I catch it, named the pilot, thought it was super cool. And then as I'm playing Pokemon, I set the Game Boy down in such a way that one of the batteries fall out. So I no longer have a Yanma because I had to restart. And there's no way I was going to sit through there and go through 100 encounters, so hopefully get another one.
Oh, I feel bad because also that's my Game Boy Advance that I bought off eBay that has no back cover, so the batteries fall out easily.
So it was all your fault.
You should get some tape on that or something.
This definitely wasn't the first time that's happened, but it was the first time where it's happened while I was playing the game.
I was about to say, like, you caught a Yanma and did add it to your party, but I guess that's the case.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Pilot.
I probably wouldn't have added it to my party anyways.
Oh,
but
man.
still, it would have been cool to get the one extra Pokédex entry.
That's like the universe telling Sean, like, you never catch Pokemon. Why did you try?
I mean, yeah, very true. I'm catching more this game than I did the first game, but still not a lot.
Yeah, at the end of this episode, we can compare how we were doing in our first games compared to the Johto region.
That'd be pretty cool, because I know I'm definitely beating my catch rate. I will say, so this isn't specifically about Route 35, but when I was going through Route 35, I think we've mentioned before how I'm the only one who is letting my mom save money during this run. And so I found out, I got a phone call from her. She does buy you stuff in this game. So she calls you and is like, hey, I bought you something. Check your PC when you have the time to see what it is. And I was so excited that happened that I went back and I got a super potion. And so it's definitely happened a couple more times past this time, but this was the first time that it happened.
I feel like this game does not give you enough money to warrant giving your money to your mom. Like, I'm not giving money to my mom, and I feel like I'm always strapped for cash.
I am the exact same way. Like, definitely this leg going up to the 4th gym, I've decided to like try and capture a bit more Pokemon than I have been. And I have no more money now. Like, I'm buying Pokeballs because I don't have enough money to buy Great Balls.
See, I think that's your guys' problem, is you're buying so many Pokeballs.
It is a problem. You'll see my Pokedex number at the end of this episode, and it is a problem when you have to buy that many Pokeballs.
I'm hoping I caught up to you, Chris. I know we had quite a big gap last episode.
The only other thing I have on Route 35, you do find TM04 rollout in a patch of grass. I did collect that, and I might be using it in the future.
That's an annoying move, Chris.
With an annoying Pokemon.
Well, that's exciting. The next area we go following Route 35 is the National Park. I always thought this area was pretty cool, where we'll obviously get into the activities that you could do there, but just the design itself, it really isn't much. I don't know, I just like the idea of, oh, and here's a national park that we have. I don't know. I do wish it was kind of fleshed out a little bit more, like to put more distinct features that make it feel like an actual park rather than just another route, because it kind of just feels like another route. But again, I like the idea, what they're trying to do. I just wish they put a little bit more into it.
And this is like the Johto version of the Safari Zone, correct?
It is, but unfortunately, instead of a Safari Zone, we have the bug catching contest. Did everyone do the bug catching contest?
I did, and it took me a long time to do it because I kept playing on Sundays, but I did do it.
I remember I did it, I think it was a Tuesday, which I didn't realize you could do it on Tuesdays. I'm like, this is weird. I thought you could only do it on like Fridays or whatever.
It's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
And how many times did you guys do it?
I only did it once. I have a story about the one time I did it, but I did it once. And I guess I'll go right into my story then. It wasn't the first time I went through the national park when I did the bug catching contest. It was probably like the second or third time. But again, like I said, it was a random Tuesday. I was playing after work and I saw that the guard was out there. I'm like, oh, let me do the bug catching contest. So I go in and my first encounter is a Venonat. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of rare, but not the greatest. So I'm going to catch it, see if that could do anything. And so catch the Venonat. It wasn't too difficult. And next I encountered, it wasn't the next encounter, but the next notable encounter I had was a Beedrill. And so I saw Beedrill, I'm like, okay, not a good Pokemon, but it should be pretty strong, or it should win me the bug catching contest is what I thought. And so Beedrill was a problem, very hard to catch. And I finally caught him with only like 5 of the Safari Balls left. And so after that, I'm like, okay, Beedrill, that should let me win. I'm just going to like retire because I think you could end it early. And so that's what I was planning on doing it. But then right after Beedrill, my next encounter was a Scyther. And I was like, what the heck, Scyther? I don't know his encounter rate. I know it's really low. And I'm like, wow, Scyther would definitely win me this. Except I only had 5 Park Balls left. And so I could not catch the Scyther because I ran out of Park Balls. And so that ended. I'm mad. we go to the actual results of the bug catching contest. I don't even place in the top 3. And the worst thing is the person who won with a Venonat, that icon in the beginning, and could have kept and maybe even, ranked, but he won with a Venonat, and I had a Beach and didn't even get a top 3? Just come on. It was very frustrating me. Because so not only did I miss out on Cypher, but I didn't even win the stupid contest.
I've heard that the bug catching contest is pretty rigged in this generation. I don't remember how the scoring works, but I'm not surprised that you lost out to a crappy little Venonat.
So sad, because I don't remember the other 2, but I didn't even make it top 3. Like, come on.
Sorry about that. That is quite sad. How about you, Chris? How was your experience? How many times?
I only did it once because, as I mentioned, they only offer it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And for some reason, I kept playing on Sunday or Monday or Friday. Fridays and Sundays are the days where I tend to find my free time. I could not play this for the life of me. Finally, I think it was a Tuesday night, and I had to tell my wife, hey, I got to do something. I got to play Pokemon. So I did enter the bug catching contest. To your question, Sean, it is a 5% encounter rate to find Scyther, as it is with Beedrill. So the fact that you found a Beedrill and a Scyther, those are both 5%. That's pretty rare.
Let me hear what the stupid Venonat encounter rate is.
The bug catching contest has a lot of different Pokemon, so the highest encounter rate of any Pokemon are Caterpie and Weedle at 20%. Venonat's 10, and everything else is 10 or 5. There's Butterfree at 5, there is Scyther at 5, and there is Pinsir at 5. And I believe this is the first time you can catch a Scyther or a Pinsir. I went through, I just kept going back and forth until I found a Scyther or a Pinsir. I finally found my level 14 Scyther. Luckily, I have my Poliwag, and I was able to use Hypnosis, put it to sleep, caught it, and yes, I was able to win. And the prize for winning the bug catching contest is a Sunstone. It's a little underwhelming. I thought it'd be more. Unlike Sean, I won the bug catching contest.
Really flexing that you caught that Cypher in front of me, too.
I must have actually, now that I think about it, I must have went back and did it a second time to catch Pinsir, because I'm pretty sure I caught Pinsir as well. I wanted to go back and train my other Pokemon in there because you get actually a huge amount of experience when you're defeating Butterfrees and Beedrills because they're evolved Pokemon. I just couldn't find the time to do it. I did it at least once, maybe a second time. I already can't remember if I caught Pinsir, but I think I did.
Well, Dustin, have you done it multiple times?
It's exciting that Chris won it. The only reason I was able to play it 3 times, I played it like 2 Saturdays and 1 Tuesday or Thursday over the course of 2 weeks. So it took quite some time.
I just know I was so mad that I didn't even nickname my Beedrill, and I nicknamed all my Pokemons.
Well, good thing, Dustin, you didn't lose to a Venonat. That would be embarrassing.
I can't believe I lost to a Venonat. So stupid. Like, if I lost to a Cypher, it would have made sense. What I thought was interesting in National Park is there is a trainer you can encounter with a level 14 Raichu. At least in Gold and Silver, you could encounter the level 14 Raichu trainer. Raichu's pretty strong. Even at level 14, if you're not prepared for it, or you don't have at least like a ground type, you could do some real damage to your team. So I will say, Onyx is getting bad rap against you guys in the trainer battles, but in the actual game, he's putting in work.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that Raichu, but yes, it was in Crystal as well. But you're right, yeah, and Onyx is the perfect thing to tank it, so it can't use any electric moves, and if it tries to tackle it, it does 1 HP.
Exactly. Any other stories in the National Park?
I did get one phone call while I was in here. It's from the bike shop, just mentioning that apparently the sales are through the roof because we took his bike for advertising, so we can now keep it for free. And I was just thinking, oh man, that'd be cool if that's how the real world works, get a free item just by riding it, basically.
That's what influencers do. Maybe we'll get the next Pokemon early if we keep talking.
I thought it was interesting that there's actually a couple different Pokemon encounters depending on if you are in the bug catching contest or not. So I mentioned Scyther and Pinsir. You cannot find those normally. That's only during the bug catching contest. That was also part of my pain of needing to do this because you cannot catch it on those off days. And then you also have a chance to catch a Sunkern only when you're not in the bug catching contest. The fun fact that I bet you everyone knows at this point, Sunkern is the absolute weakest Pokemon in the entire Pokemon ever in terms of base stats. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
So you caught it, added to your team, refused to evolve it, right, Chris?
Dude, that would be such a challenge run. If you had to do a Sunkern team and you could not evolve it.
Sunkern and unknown team.
Oh, God. Challenge accepted. No, not at all. And lastly, you do get a couple items in National Park. You can get a Quick Claw from a woman with a Persian. You can get TM28 Dig. You can get a Full Heal. And then in Pokemon Crystal, sometimes you can get a Nugget. On that note about Dig, I did write that I was really disappointed to find out that this is the generation where they nerfed it completely. Because if you guys remember, in Season 1, my Sandy was using Dig for a long time because it had 100 base power and then it was getting the same type attack bonus. So I was like, this is practically an earthquake early on in the game. And then they nerfed it in this generation, so it only has 60 base power. So we're talking, if you have same type attack bonus, you're now at 150 versus a 90. And if we're talking about a super effective same type attack bonus, you're at 300 versus 180. That is a massive difference.
Well, I will say I'm very happy that I got Dig because I gave it to my Onix, which his last strongest ground type move was Mud Slap that I got from the first gym. So it's a massive improvement in terms of my Onix.
Imagine what it could be if it had 100 base power still.
I know. Let me find Earthquake whenever we get that in this game. We'll see if I still have the Onix in my team.
I have to be honest. I never got Dig because I didn't find the way through the gate. I was trying my best, but I never got through that gate.
It's not too difficult.
Oh, man.
Get back to us next episode if you figure it out.
Let's talk about the tree because there's nothing else really happening here. So, as we all come to find out, the tree that's blocking off the road is actually a Pokemon. And when you use the squirt bottle on it, he doesn't like that and he attacks us. And we find out the Pokemon is a Sudowoodo. I don't know, it's such a dorky looking Pokemon, but I've always loved Sudowoodo. Like, I feel like if I was living in the Pokemon world, I probably would have a Sudowoodo or its pre-evolution that we don't know exists yet, but we could talk about that later. Because I don't know, they're just so adorable Pokemon. But did anyone have any stories about the Sudowoodo battle at all? Because I have a story. So as I mentioned earlier, I added the Slowpoke to my team. For those of you who don't know, one of the moves that Sudowoodo has is Mimic, which becomes the last move that one of your Pokemon use. And so I had my Slowpoke that used Water Gun a couple times because its defense was pretty high, just to get it down, and it used Mimic. And eventually, when I was trying to catch it, it took down my Slowpoke. And for those of you who don't remember, the rest of my team entails a Flaffy, a Onix, and a Quilava. And this Sudowoodo now knows Water Gun because it took it from my Slowpoke. So I had my Flaffy out that got it got it paralyzed. But then eventually he took down my Flaffy. Now I only have a Quilava and an Onix, and then it has a Water Gun. And so it instantly took down my Onix. Like, I think only one Water Gun down. I was down to my Quilava, and I really wanted to catch Sudowoodo. I didn't think I was going to add to my team, but like I said, I like the Pokemon. And so it got my Quilava down pretty close, but I did eventually catch it, but very, very close to comfort, almost to where I whited out to him.
Dang, Sudowoodo is really like a mid-game boss happening right here.
It reminds me of last season when Chris had the trouble with Snorlax.
Yeah, no trouble here, but I caught it. I named it Wiggle, threw it into the PC.
I like that name.
Because it wiggles.
It did wiggle. We're so smart to water the tree. I mean, who would have thought to do that? Normally it likes it, but this time it didn't. On that point, I wonder how many people, when they first played this game, just automatically assumed this was a grass type and could not figure out it was a rock type. And they give you the hints there. You water it, it does not like it, so maybe you should use water moves on it. But I thought that was clever.
I never thought of it like that yet. Just because, yeah, at least from my perspective, like, we've known Sudowoodo for so long. But interesting to think about that. But I did capture Sudowoodo, and I did add him to the team. So I named him Lieutenant Banyan, because apparently Banyan is a type of tree that is known for its strength and longevity. Something that gentleman Oliver Olivine would name.
It's a pretty good name. I like how there's a reasoning behind the tree and all that. I just think of something funny.
I have nothing really to report on Sudowoodo. I did catch it. It's generally pretty easy for me to catch Pokemon since my Poliwag has Hypnosis. So that's been pretty nice. The only thing I noted, though, is I didn't realize how rare they make Sudowoodo in Generation 2 and Generation 3, because this is the only Sudowoodo you can find in the game. In Generation 3, it's in the Emerald post-game only, and it's also in Pokemon Coliseum if you want to count that. So you have to go all the way until Pokemon Pearl and Platinum for it to actually be found in Wild Grass. Kind of surprised that they gatekeeped it for that long.
I mean, I think we'll probably talk about this a little bit more if we get to Season 3, but I think just the change from these first two generations, the giant Game Boy cartridges, and then it goes to the smaller ones, then what do you know, you can't even trade Pokemon from these two gens to the Gen 3. And so I think a lot of the Gen 2 Pokemon got the short end of the stick because a lot of them are only accessible in like Emerald post game or in Pokemon Coliseum. You couldn't find them naturally in the third generation. But again, we could talk about that later, especially because that's around the time that we all really got into Pokemon. So it just made Gen 2 feel so much more special because those Pokemon weren't readily available like Gen 1 and 3 were.
And especially a Pokemon like Sudowoodo, where you can only find maybe one per game. Definitely a special Pokemon.
So I'm excited to try and use him this playthrough, but we will see how long it'll go. But he was the one that replaced my Geodude. Otherwise, you do get Rock Smash, right? After clearing him? Or when do you get Rock Smash?
You do get Rock Smash, but I believe that's in Ecruteak. Am I misremembering? I know we do get Rock Smash, though.
You do get Rock Smash in this area. It's the hiker. You talk to him after and he says, "Whoa, you cleared the tree. Thank you," and gives you Rock Smash.
And I didn't realize, but Rock Smash is a TM, a non-HM.
Did you get Rock Smash to a Pokemon?
I did. I do have a Flaffy, which I haven't brought to the battles just because of Sean. Because for the listeners, we do have a rule. If we lose to each other using the same Pokemon, the winner gets to keep it.
I mean, you're the one who made that rule.
It's Sean's fault.
Just beat me in the battle, man. That's all you need. I gave Rock Smash to my Clava. I wanted to give it some coverage. So, I mean, I'm giving you guys all the answers to the test, telling you about what Pokemon I have and what moves they have, but you guys need to help.
Thanks.
I mean, I know Rock Smash isn't the strongest move, but still, Clava was able to learn it. I'm like, oh, okay, give me some coverage on rock types, I guess.
So I taught it to, funny enough, Togepi. It can learn Rock Smash. I didn't want to teach it to any of my party members, so I taught it to Togepi because it can also learn Flash. So this is a perfect Pokemon to go through the Dark Cave with, which coincidentally has some boulders that you can break. And so that segues me into a new Pokemon that you can discover through Rock Smash. There is I believe 80% chance, maybe 90, of finding a Geodude when you use Rock Smash. And then there's a 10% encounter chance of finding a Shuckle.
Don't tell me you added Shuckle to your team.
I added Shuckle to my team.
That's a very surprise entry. I like it.
That is one of the most annoying Pokemon in all of existence.
Dustin, do you know what Shuckle's stat distribution is?
I have no idea.
Okay, let me tell you. It has 5 speed, 10 special attack, 10 attack, 20 HP, and 230 defense and special defense. It is the walliest wall in all of Pokemon.
Wow. But every other stat is terrible.
Yes, it is a defensive tank, both physical and special. It will not move quickly. It will not hit for power. That's who I taught Rollout to, so it can get a move that doubles in power. Sean is rolling his eyes at me because this is an awesome strategy.
I like it. This is like competitive strats right here.
And you want to know what his nickname is? Aw Shucks.
I actually like that name.
That's what we're going to be saying when you beat us today.
I know. I was just going to say that its crazy stats in defense and special defense are part of the reason why it will never get an evolution. which is an item that gets introduced in later generations called an Eviolite, which basically if a Pokemon is unevolved, its defense and special defense gets doubled. And so just the thought of what Chris just mentioned, those stats getting doubled on defense, it's just, I think, forever prevents the Pokemon Company from ever giving it an evolution.
It is really difficult to use, I will say, but I'll talk about the moves it has just a bit later, and it is a kind of strategic, fun little Pokemon, and I'm having a good time with Aw Shucks.
I'm sure you're going to say the moves it learns, but I know one of them. I swear, if you're doing the same rap strategy that I was doing in Gen 1, but this time in Gen 2, I don't know if rap is as overpowered as it is in Gen 1, but I do know that it learns rap, and that since it's such a wall, that rap is actually a pretty useful move on it.
All right, I'll spoil it now. Yes, I do have rap on my Shuckle, and yes, it is not as broken as Gen 1 where it can't move, but if you are wrapped, you cannot switch out your Pokemon. So you better get ready for my rollout when you can't switch out. Anyways, that's one of the Pokemon I added, so yeah.
And talking about Dark Cave, I also went back to Dark Cave on this lake because I heard from a caller that there's a Dunsparce swarm. So I was able to capture Dunsparce. But I do not really like the way it looks, so it's going to stay on the PC.
It's just so funny, though. Gen 2 introduces so many Pokemon that just don't have an evolution. Eventually, we did get the Dunsparce evolution. But anyways, that's not till for another close 20 years later. But anyways, Dunsparce, Shuckle, Sudowoodo, all these Pokemon introduced with no evolutions. It's just so strange that they decided to go so heavily on that.
It's time to move on to Ecruteak City. This is a historical city where the past meets the present.
You have a couple things that you can do inside Ecruteak City. There's the dance hall with the kimono girls. There's the burned tower. There's the gym. There's someone waiting for you in the Pokemon Center, too. Do you guys want to start with that?
I think we should start with that. Who's waiting for us, Chris?
It is the one and only Bill from Generation 1, the man who created the Pokemon system himself. I don't actually remember what he says, but if we remember, though, I believe it's his grandfather who has a nice little tidy place in Goldenrod that we might want to visit.
After encountering Bill, did anyone decide to go visit his grandpa back in Goldenrod City?
Yeah, of course. So he did just complete building apparently a time capsule where he mentions you can trade Pokemon to the past, which I don't fully understand. Maybe that's some mechanic, I guess, to try and trade Pokemon between older games. When you do go see him in Goldenrod City, you can get an Eevee, which I definitely did. How about you guys?
I got an Eevee.
I got an Eevee.
Going off of our previous rules where we can't reuse the same Pokemon, we all had previous Eevee evolutions, so I can't use Vaporeon, Sean cannot use Flareon, and Chris cannot use Jolteon, just as a reminder.
I would just say, though, it's not going to be that big of an issue in this game because all of the evolution stones are locked until outside of Johto. So even if we wanted one of those three, we wouldn't be able to get them until we get to the Johto post game. So there are 2 new evolutions in this generation, and there's 3 of us. So if any one of us is going for the same evolution, I guess you're going to have to find out who the real trainer master will be.
The real Pokemon master of Eevee.
Of Eevee. I won't spoil my Eevee's name, because if I tell you its name, you're going to know which evolution I'm going to go for. I have the Eevee. I think I added it officially to my party, not during this run, but maybe after it. I don't remember. But we'll have to see. If you guys ever see its name, it'll be very evident what I'm going for.
Quick question, Sean. You don't have to tell me what it's going to evolve into, but would you say you would evolve it in the day or the night?
I would definitely evolve it during a time. I will also say at this point in time when I went back, I decided, because my Slowpoke's name, if you guys remember from when I introduced it a while ago, I named it Tail. I kind of had a decision that I wanted to do a trade evolution with it, and so I didn't think Tail was an appropriate name for it, so I changed his name to Thinker instead.
That's a real thinker.
Well, this is the one point in the game where coming in second place in the bug catching contest actually works out, because they do give you an Everstone. So I gave my Eevee an Everstone, so then that way I don't have to worry about it just accidentally leveling up at whatever time of day I'm playing it.
You can say no to the evolution, You can press B.
I didn't think that far ahead, Chris.
Because then how are you going to know them? It's that max happiness, and you want to actually evolve it if you don't go through and cancel it.
Oh, I'm going to wait to evolve it.
You're going to wait to see which ones we got and decide who you want to get based on that, aren't you? Wow. Okay. Dustin's being very strategic here with his Pokemon. I'm just choosing which ones I like.
We're going to have fun here because I think I know which one Sean's going for. So I'm going to try to go for the opposite and therefore make Dustin pick then which one he wants and then battle one of us for that one. We're going to give him a huge disadvantage. A little thing that I did just to increase friendship, I actually breeded this Eevee into another Eevee egg, which hatches at level 5. But when you hatch a Pokemon, it starts at 120 base friendship instead of 70. And then from there, a cool thing about Pokemon Crystal is that if you level up a Pokemon in the same area that it was hatched or caught, it actually gets double the amount of friendship per level. So I decided to do that and kind of speed run getting this friendship up on my Eevee. So yes, actually, essentially by level, I think 23, it was already trying to evolve, which was pretty nice.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
I have not evolved it yet. I added it to my team, but it is still just an Eevee.
Interesting. Why haven't you evolved it?
I was kind of also trying to test the waters to figure out who was going to do what, just so we didn't all have the same Pokemon here. And I think I've waited long enough to make my decision.
That's a pretty cool strategy. I actually never knew that about the daycare center. And that's also the first time one of us have breeded a Pokemon on the show. So that's cool.
Breeding sucks in Gen 2, though. I'm going to just warn you guys that if you are using a Ditto like I was, and then another Pokemon, there's like a 3% chance every 250 steps of an egg being created. And it was taking me forever to finally have the guy come outside, which means that he has an egg. So I'm just warning you guys. And then after that, Eevee has one of the highest egg cycles in all of Pokemon, which means that it takes a bunch of steps to hatch an Eevee egg. It was a very slow process, and you're going to see that in my playtime.
Very, very random, but also on my way back to Ecruteak, I think it was on Route 36. 36, I encountered a Growlithe, which I thought was pretty cool, and so I caught it. I'm not going to use it because I have a Clava first and foremost, but now this is the second time because I think I caught a Growlithe my first run in Pokemon Red, but I never used it, and so one of these days I will use this Growlithe, but I just like my other fire Pokemon more.
I think we're going to have to do a run through or we can't use our main Pokemon.
Her main Pokemon? What?
Our starter Pokemon.
That would be pretty insane.
Going back to Ecruteak City, I think the next one we should do is probably the dance theater since we just got our Eevee. And going inside this, you do find a bunch of kimono girls who all have, I think, every Eevee evolution, right?
They do. And so this is when you first learn about the new 2 evolutions of Eevee.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. Like the moment that they introduced the Eevee to you just through Bill, for me at this point, I didn't get Eevee yet. So you're already seeing the 2 new evolutions right here. It was cool. And then immediately afterwards was when I went to Bill to get the Eevee. Do you guys have any stories inside the dance theater?
Not really. I thought it was very interesting when you talk to the one guy and he mentions how like, oh, my Rhydon is trying to be a synchronized swimmer. It's like, what? Of all Pokemon, Rhydon? What?
A Pokemon that can swim and dance, I think is what is mentioned. So not only does he want to swim.
I don't think I have any notes. I took them down pretty easily, although I did like that you can battle them in any order because it really was like almost like roulette. You never knew which Eevee you were going to find. Yeah, and same thing that Sean said. This is the first time you're going to realize that there's 2 new evolutions that you would not have seen in Generation 1. So I thought that was pretty cool. But other than that, I don't think I have much to note.
And I do have one note while I was battling Umbreon, which I didn't realize this, but I guess when Umbreon used Pursuit, it was in the moment that I was trying out Pokemon, and Pursuit can still attack before trying out. And I was trying to level up a Pokemon at that time, so that one just got wiped out. And that was very sad.
Fun fact, Pursuit does double damage if you're trading out on this turn that the Pokemon uses it.
That's a good move against you guys.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but I mean, with Chris's Shuckle, there's not going to be much trading out.
I'm going to wrap you to death and roll you out.
I'm going to mention that not much to do with the actual kimono house, but just like So we've been talking about this, logically, the steps that we go through each route. But what happened for me is I went to the kimono house. I would beat like 3 of the girls and decided I wanted to heal one of my Pokemon. That's when I went to the PC and I saw a bill. I'm like, oh, this means I could get an Eevee. So it's this point when I went back to Goldenrod. And at this point is when I saw the bug catching contest was available. So I did a lot of stuff in between starting the kimono fights and finishing them. And just thought it was funny because I got super distracted. And like by the time I came back, my Pokemon were like a full level or 2 above where they were.
What was your reward for beating the kimono girls?
Surf!
The most broken move in all of Pokemon, just handing you a 95 base power move within the first 4 gyms. This is why you have to have a water Pokemon on your team. It's just, you're at such a disadvantage if you don't.
Yep. So thank you for joining the team, Slowpoke.
So that is awesome, although you cannot surf until you beat the gym leader in this town. That will open up a huge portion of the game next episode.
Yes, it will. So now, should we talk about the burned tower next?
Before the burned tower, I think we should talk about another house, which I feel like would probably be one of Chris's favorite houses. Did you guys go into the treasure hunter house?
Treasure hunter house?
No.
There's a treasure hunter house, and inside it, you can find, well, you do receive an item finder, which that's not that interesting, but inside there's a lot of like lore about the Pokemon world. Well, mainly about the city. It contains a book about Ecruteak's history. Apparently it tells some like backstory about the 2 towers and the Pokemon that lived there. Also talks about 3 Pokemon that were born of fire, lightning, and water, and that they couldn't contain their excessive power. So the 3 ran off into the grasslands. It was really interesting hearing all about this in the treasure hunter house.
I will say something that I really appreciate with this second generation is that most of these cities and towns do feel very unique and like they have their own personality, which is something I think even the first generation does a good job at. I feel like this generation is when they really get it down. Like each city has a personality. Like even Ecruteak, it's not a lot there, but it feels culturally important. It feels like there's an emphasis there just because of the stuff that is there. And so I think this gen, they do a really good job of just giving these towns their own personality.
Yeah, I agree. I totally did not read any of those entries. I must have got the item finder because when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I got that. But I'm going to go back and read those entries. Now that you mention it, that does sound really cool.
Yeah, because like your favorite place from the last generation was the Pokemansion with all the diary entries.
Funny enough, that one has all those entries and that burned down, didn't it, in that generation?
Yeah.
This is the prelude to the burned tower we're about to go into.
It just seems like burned buildings have the most lore in Pokemon history.
Fire's the best.
Moving into the burned tower, what do you guys have?
Before eventful stuff happens, there is a trainer in there that has a Charmeleon. I thought that was pretty cool. Because, we see a Raichu and now a Charmeleon, some pretty strong Pokemon, rare strong Pokemon that normal trainers have. But that's about like the only thing.
Did you write down the name of that trainer?
Nope.
This is just a really fun little fun fact. So that trainer with a Charmeleon in Gen 2, Fire Breather Dick, and I guess the Pokemon Company is so small-minded that they had to rename him Fire Breather Richard by the remakes. I like how I think this is the same in all the generations. You can kind of just see your rival hanging out in the middle there when you enter, and I felt like that was kind of weird. I'm like, I feel like they always just walk out of somewhere and they're like, oh, that's my rival. And this time it was like, he's just kind of chilling, standing there.
Yep. Well, without further ado, let's go into the rival fights then. Anyone want to start us off?
For me, I didn't really write too much.
No, the only thing I have to mention is that his Magnemite, I thought was going to be super easy to take down. And then it had Sonic Boom, which normally isn't that big of a deal. But all of a sudden, my team is supposed to be this defensive wall. And then you use a Magnemite that has a move that always gets rid of 20 HP. That actually gets rid of my entire strategy of being a defensive wall. So that was the only thing that actually gave me trouble. Although he does have a Haunter that has the move Curse. And might be worth mentioning, do we all know how Curse works in general?
I do not.
thought it'd be good to mention because we're going to be going up against some ghost-type Pokemon later. Curse, if used by a ghost-type Pokemon, it cuts half of its HP and then places a curse on its opposing Pokemon, and it loses a pretty big chunk, like a third or a fourth of its HP every turn. If you use Curse and you are not a Ghost-type Pokemon, it will raise all your stats except speed, I think. It's a weird move that depends on your typing. I just thought I'd mention that.
So after you do beat your rival, he does mention that he hates battling wimps and kind of just storms off. So I am really not liking this guy. There are a lot of trainers in here that are fire breathers, and Sean already mentioned there's the Charmeleon. I encountered a Charmander in here too, and I'm just wondering, is that the reason why this tower burned down? You have all these fire breathers in here training their Pokemon.
It could be, because I don't think they mentioned how the fire happens there. But in the basement, there is something interesting down there. Chris, what do we find when we go to the basement?
You find the first legendary Pokemon of this game. You find a... Should we give away its name, or...?
Well, actually, this might be different for us and you, Chris, because Crystal might be different than Gold and Silver. So I think we should just start off how our encounter was down there, and then you could just say how yours was. And we'll see if it's the same, but it might be different.
Okay.
But because you have a different box art legendary than us. But anyways, for us, what happens is you see 3 Pokemon, and you don't really get to encounter them, or you don't know what they are. They just run away. And so I'm sure when people were playing this the first time, they probably saw that happen, like, oh, cool, we're going to see these Pokemon somewhere down the line, without even realizing that this is the first roaming Pokemon that ever got introduced. Chris, is that how it's like for you too?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like. I believe that Suicune comes up to you and, like, I don't think it says anything, obviously, but it comes up to you and they kind of make note of that. And then it also hops away.
Yeah, it doesn't do that for us.
Oh, I thought it was kind of silly. They're these, like, tiny little sprites and they just start kind of jumping around and then they go away.
No, I liked it though. It's pretty cool to see the sprites, like, interacting in the world. And then, again, just going back to Gen 2, this is your first time playing. You have no idea those are legendary Pokemon. You don't know any of that. And again, you don't know you just started the first ever roaming sequence in Pokemon.
And I could be completely wrong about this because I am not a Gen 2 expert, but I believe that this opens up the roaming Pokemon. Like, you now have the ability to find them out in the wild.
You do. And so I think the first of us to catch one should get imaginary medal or something, because they're going to be very difficult to catch if any of them get caught.
Well, I can't wait to get that. Have you guys encountered them since?
Oh, no.
Nope.
Well, I have encountered all 3 of them already, but I haven't caught them
Wait,
yet.
what?
You encountered all 3 of them?
I have.
What? How?
I've been trying to train Pokemon because I got some new Pokemon, like Eevee's one of them, so I was trying to train them nearby, and they kept coming, and it was sad because one of the Pokemon I was training is a Ghastly, and he used to have Mean Look, but then I traded out Mean Look, so that was very sad.
2 things on that. In my game, Crystal, Suicune is not a roaming. I believe it's an encounter Pokemon. But the other 2 are roaming for me. And also, Dustin, just a heads up, even if you have Mean Look or a move like that, they still have Roar. And they can still run away from you. It is so cheap.
Wow.
So stupid.
Yeah, I don't know what the correct strategy is to catch these guys, but I've heard that the Gen 2 roaming Pokemon are just really difficult.
I don't know if this is in Gen 2, but I know in the other generations, you could damage them, and then their damage stays with them. Is that still in this gen, do we know? Did you damage any of them when you encountered them, Dustin?
I did not.
Well, then maybe we could find out when we have more chances. Usually how I do it is just get one attack off on them until they finally get low enough to spam Pokeballs on them.
I really thought that Dustin was pulling a prank on us or something, saying, well, I actually found all 3 of them.
I actually caught them.
You know, I have to catch up to Chris.
I've also been training Pokemon and catching a lot of Pokemon, and I have not found any of them. And that sucks because you get them on your little map as a tracker after you encounter them.
Really?
Yeah, you can track them.
Okay, we'll see by the next gym what happens. I know they're level 40, so we'll see how that goes.
And then I'm sure maybe in that house you're talking about, they probably talked about the lore of these Pokemon, but did we already discuss about the lore of them? I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
Basically, there were the 2 towers in Ecruteak, and what became the burned tower eventually got on fire, and unfortunately, 3 Pokemon passed away. But a very powerful Pokemon came down and granted these Pokemon life again, and they came back as the 3 legendary dogs. And there's a theory out there, which I think has a lot of credibility, that those 3 Pokemon that passed away were the 3 original evolutions. There's the Vaporeon and the Suicune, the Jolteon and the Raikou, and then the Flareon and the Entei. And, which this doesn't exist just now, but in later generations when eventually abilities are introduced and then hidden abilities are introduced, they all 3 have the same hidden ability. So the Vaporeon hidden ability is the same as the Suicune and yada, yada, yada. And so, I mean, we'll talk about that more when abilities get introduced. Anyways, as a fun fan theory that I think is true, just because it makes so much sense.
I bet you that's Pokemon just hearing the theory and then adding it in later, which means to me that's canon. I like that theory.
That is really cool. I really like these theories. Keep bringing them up.
I will as they come up. But I think, because after Burn Tower, there's not much else to do in Ecruteak other than the gym, right?
Yeah, and like this is probably one of my favorite cities now just because of how much interesting stuff they have. I mean, there was already like all this lore of all the legendary Pokemon. It looks like they all originated from this one city, which is cool.
Yeah, I was going to save this to the end, but I might as well mention it now that I'm really enjoying Johto in general. Just the feel of it all, the music. I think they based it kind of more off of more rural areas of Japan. And I'm just digging this kind of fall vibe that I'm getting from Pokemon Johto. And it has a really distinct feeling. Unlike Kanto, which kind of is very generic, small town, big town. This actually has some personality, I've been finding.
100% agreed. Without further ado, let's talk about the 4th gym, the Ghost type gym. I know we had Agatha, the Elite Four Ghost type member back in Gen 1, but there was no Ghost gym in Gen 1, so now we have one. But it is very sad because there's a very limited amount of Ghost Pokemon.
It's crazy that they added a Ghost gym, but didn't really add any new Ghost Pokemon to add to this Ghost gym.
See, there is one new Ghost Pokemon that they introduced that is not even in the gym at all, which is like, why do you even add it? Mischievous is the Ghost Pokemon that's added, which I don't even know how you get in this game because it's very rare. So I'm sure many people don't even know that a new Ghost was introduced when this gen first came out.
Do you want to know how many Pokemon that they use outside of the Ghastly line in this gym?
Tell me, Tris.
0.
Yeah, there is none. It's only Ghastlies.
Not even like we've been to gyms before where the trainers maybe have one different type of Pokemon or something a little different. No, you face like 10 Ghastlies, 3 Haunters, and maybe even another Pokemon.
We should introduce our Pokemon since we can only select 4 going into this gym. So I can get started with my Pokemon. So I do have a couple new introductions. I do have to say I did go into one route. I went to Route 38 a little bit to train Pokemon. So I did capture one Pokemon from Route 38, which is to the left of Ecruteak, Tauros. And I named him Captain Seabull because Oliver Olivine has a port city. He has to try and keep it nautical theme. Then we also have Magmar from the Burn Tower, Ensign Mag. And then we got Sudowoodo, Lieutenant Banyan, and Krakna, Admiral Todd.
So I'll talk about real quickly the 2 Pokemon that I did not select. I do still have a starter Pokemon, a Bayleaf. I just don't use it a whole lot or talk about it because it's not that good. And then I think I mentioned last episode that I got that egg that hatched into a Magby, which I have temporarily added it to my team. It has not evolved yet, but for that reason, I did not select it for this gym. But the 4 Pokemon I did select, Wagyu, my
Whirl?
Yes, that's where I was going with that. At level 25, it evolves into Poliwhirl, which is, I needed that so badly because Poliwag is such a bad Pokemon. And then the fact I was given the HM for Surf, it just made this Pokemon from a horrible water gun low-level Pokemon to this beefy surfer, and I've been so happy. After that, we have Teddy the Teddiursa, which learned Feint Attack, which is going to come in huge handy right now in this gym. And then I talked about Shucks the Shuckle and the Eevee that I added, which has not evolved yet, but it's just a plain Eevee.
All right, well, the only difference from the last gym to this gym is I added the Thinker, the Slowpoke, to my party. And then, of course, I have my Cinder the Quilava, Rocky the Onyx, and Pikafluff the Flaffy. Before the gym leader, do we have any stories in the gym?
I do have one which I find really interesting is the very first trainer you face has the most Pokemon in this gym, which is 5 Pokemon, and I thought that was quite interesting.
It's all Ghastlies.
Yep, just all Ghastly, all the exact same Pokemon. Otherwise, how did you guys fare with the puzzle?
Once when you get to the second trainer, she tells you what it is, and before that, like, I was struggling. I couldn't figure it out. But then she tells you how to do it. I'm like, oh, it's not too bad.
Well, it's still a bit of a riddle because I think she tells you the answer is right in front of you or something like that to basically tell you that, like, keep doing a direct path to the next person. I was also able to pick up on it after that little hint, but I still thought that, like, I'm sure that there's been enough kids who could not decipher that little riddle. Also, that second trainer, I did write down that I really loved the sprite for the mediums in Gen 2, where they're these old ladies that are like having an exorcism with little ghosts flying away from them. I actually wrote in my notes that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, I guess. Are we ready to talk about the actual gym battle?
Let's do it. When we meet Morty, found it really interesting how he mentions that he's been training to try and find the legendary Pokemon and meet them one day. This is the legendary segment of Pokemon right now at Ecruteak City, so I thought that was really cool. Otherwise, for me, my Croconaw has Bite, and it's a dark move, which they just made it dark this generation. Very effective against Ghosts, so I just needed to use Croconaw throughout this whole gym, so it's quite easy for me. How about you guys?
I'll go into it. I started off with my Slowpoke because it just learned Confusion, I believe, at this point in time, and so Confusion is not very effective against Ghost types, but it is very effective against Poison type, which is the Haunter or the Ghastly's second typing in its evolution line. So I thought that I would be able to take him down pretty easily with my Slowpoke, and I was wrong. He took down my Slowpoke, and then I had to send out Clava, and I was doing fine until he sent out his Gengar. And I was not ready for Gengar, and he kind of just finished me off with him. And I was like, all right, time to do a training montage.
Oh no.
Because I got beat by Morty my first attempt. So then I left, got all my Pokemon up to level 24, because I don't remember. I think my Kalaba was like level 23, and everyone else was just a little bit below that. So I got them all to level 24. I went in again. This time I led with my Flaffy, and that changed everything. So Flaffy was able to do work against the Ghastlies and the Haunters that he has. And then when he took out his Gengar, I had to use my Clava, and I still was scared because Gengar already proved strong, already took me out last time, and I knew like I needed to take him out with his Clava because Flappy fainted, and I knew like my Onix and Slowpoke were going to struggle against this Gengar. And I got very lucky because he missed twice on Hypnosis on my Clava, and then he used Mean Look as the final move, and I got 2 crits on Embers. And so because of all of that, I was able to take his Gengar out with my Clava, which eventually I won with Clava. But if Clava did not take down my Gengar, I was going to be in trouble.
I can echo Sean's sentiment there. And I'm surprised that Dustin went through this so easily because I thought this was going to be a cakewalk. And I shouldn't because, as all of our listeners know, I have failed the gym the first time every time, which I did again for Morty.
Oh no.
That Gengar with Dream Eater is so much stronger than I thought it would be. Literally, I went into it and my whole strategy was kind of like Dustin's to rush through it with, in this case, my Teddiursa, because it knew Feint Attack. And these Pokemon have high special defenses, but their regular defenses aren't anything special. So I was going through it with Feint Attack, and all of a sudden, the Gengar puts me to sleep, Dream Eats me, and without my Teddiursa, I can't do that much. And it keeps doing that. It did that with my Poliwhirl as well. And then after that, my Shuckle and my Eevee had nothing. So I lost the first time. So then I go in with a strategy this time. I bring in Shuckle at first, which is able to take down Ghastly, and I'm able to get a little bit of Haunter's HP down. And then from there, I can bring in my Teddiursa, which does get rid of Haunter, but not after it used one curse, which was quite frustrating because now my Teddiursa was cursed. I don't know if this is cheating. I'm going to get your guys' opinion.
Whoa, with a statement like that.
Sounds like cheating already. It's cheating.
So brings out Gengar, uses Hypnosis, it misses. So I use Feint Attack. And then I try to do it a second time, and it puts me to sleep. Because I was really nervous and I really didn't feel like wasting so much more time, I used one Awakening to wake it up.
Weak.
That is weak.
And so it uses Dream Eater, which doesn't do anything. And from there, I'm able to stay alive long enough to take it down. Because I'm like, this is such a cheap strategy. Just put it to sleep and then use Dream Eater on every Pokemon. But then again, I mean, all of the gym leaders have had kind of competitive strategies like that, which I can appreciate. So then I do end up losing Teddy Ursa, which then it's finally just my Poly Whirl against his last Haunter. And I was able to win there because I put his Haunter to sleep with my Poly Whirl. And I'm able to use Surf and win. So I did lose the first time. I needed a little bit of strategy. And I'll commend Morty. I thought he was going to be a cakewalk like most gym leaders usually are. But nope, all the gym leaders in Johto decide to have good strategies.
I was going to say, Chris, you say most gym leaders generally are, but you haven't won on the first time for a single time this run.
Chris, what's going on?
I forget the first gym, but the second one with Bugsy was Fury Cutter, not knowing how that worked. The third one... Come on, it's Milk Tank.
I think we all whited out on Miltanks.
I did not. Let the record show I won with my Onyx at 1 HP. I remember.
And then this one with the Hypnosis Dream Eater strategy. I mean, especially with a fast Gengar. And also, yeah, Gengar has some of the best stats that you can reach at this point of the game. I mean, it's gonna be the strongest Pokemon that you have faced to this point. Even stronger than Milk Tank, I think.
I at least tried to come in prepared because that was another reason why I caught Magmar. I don't think I'll have him in my party much longer, but it was mainly just to help out in case they took down Croconaw. I'd have a second Pokemon that can actually do something.
You better not keep Magmar because I have a Mag B, which might be a Magmar at some point.
We'll see. I'll let you have that one if you give me the Eevee.
Well, what if it's Sean's Pokemon and not mine? You'll have to see.
I do have an idea of which Eevee evolution I want, but we'll see. It's going against my usual.
Oh, well, if you say that, then I think wait a second. You always liked the other one that I didn't like, I think. I think we like the opposite ones. So if you're saying that, then I think you want what I want, because I always get this one. It's my favorite.
Which means he's strategizing and actually picking the opposite one, so you're even throwing off that tail.
It's all a mind game. But after you beat Morty, you can now have Pokemon leveling up to 50 that will obey you, and you can now use Surf outside of battle. And he does give you the TM Shadow Ball.
Kind of disappointing move.
Disappointing. In these gens, it's still strong. You just have to give it to a physical attacker because Ghost is a physical type.
Yes.
But if you give it to one of your physical attackers, it's still a pretty strong move, Chris.
That's true. Statistically, one of us here will have an Espeon at one point. Don't teach it to your Espeon because that's going to be a waste.
I think we can move into my favorite segment, the Poke Stats. So you know what we'll do since we're 4 gyms in? We'll go over all of our stats, and then we can kind of just compare and look at last season's stats at the 4th gym, just to see how we're doing. But for now, we'll start off with the total time, and how we're going to do this is let's start off with Sean, who had the least amount of time last episode.
My time is 10 hours and 30 minutes.
All right, and then I can go next. So I had a major jump also because I was trying to catch up to Chris. I had 21 hours and 5 minutes.
Oh, I thought that I played for a while. No, I'm at 19 hours, 22 minutes.
So we're both about 10 hours more than Sean.
Double my time.
All right.
Double my time.
Let's do the Pokedex then. Let's figure out if this is worth it.
Yeah, we'll see if it's worth it. But just for the listeners at home, Sean played 2 hours and 27 minutes. Chris played 6 hours and 20 minutes. And I played about 10 hours.
You played my entire...
To my defense, I called out sick one day at work. So that was Pokemon Day.
You played my entire time in this one section.
Hey, I really like Ecruteak. That's why I saw all 3 legendaries.
That makes sense now. Makes a lot of sense now. Chris, why haven't you seen them? You need to pick it up.
I don't know. I'm telling you, I've been playing a lot in training. I do not know why I haven't found them.
All right, so Pokedex starting with Sean.
I am at 21.
Sorry.
Both of you guys laugh. I was really impressed and happy with that number, but wow, I get a chuckle out of you guys.
All right, I am at 60.
Oh, thank God. I'm at 63.
Oh, we're getting there.
Oh my lord.
I definitely had a major run after seeing like Chris with the last episode capturing so many Pokemon. I really wanted to pull it in, try and become the Pokemon hunter again, release that inner energy. So Sean caught 5 Pokemon, Chris caught 18, and I caught 30 Pokemon.
Wow.
I love how when we're starting this, Dustin's like, oh, I'm not the Pokemon hunter anymore. And all it took was Chris 3 gyms to be the Pokemon hunter. Dustin's like, you know what? I can't take this anymore.
The first 2 gyms was fine, but then as soon as you got like 15 more Pokemon than me, I was like, ooh, this is not looking good. Okay, so now let's go over average Pokemon party levels. So let's see who had the least last time. It was me. So going over the full party one more time. So my Tauros, Captain Seabull, was level 21. He was the newest addition. My Magmar Ensign Mag at level 23. Sudowoodo Lieutenant Banyan at level 23. And then Krokna Admiral Tot at level 26.
So I've already kind of spoiled it because I said I trained all my Pokemon at level 24. So just to remind everyone, I have Pika Fluff the Flaffy at level 24. I have Rocky the Onyx at level 24. I have Faker the Slowpoke at level 24. And everyone's favorite, Cinder the Quilava at level 25. Breaking the pattern. Because I forgot he leveled up after he beat the Gengar in the clutch moment that he did.
And then going into my team, I'll go from lowest to highest. My 2 newest members, I had my Eevee at level 21. I have Shucks the Shuckle at level 22. Teddy the Teddy Ursa at level 25. And Wagyu the Poliwhirl at level 27. Good luck.
Does look like me and Sean leveled up the same amount since the last gym. It was like 4.5 levels that we got all of our Pokemon. And Chris, you leveled all of your Pokemon 3.75 levels.
Yeah.
So pretty even.
Technically, if you really wanted to be honest, I had a level 5 Eevee that I trained up to 21 and a level 15 Shuckle to level 22.
We don't count that, Chris. So let me just see at Gym 4, just to see how we're doing from the last generation to this generation. So let me copy that real quick. All right, so to give a quick comparison, we had about 10 to 12 hours of gameplay between the 3 of us, compared to now, me and Chris are well above that, and Sean is just playing the same level. And our Pokemon, the highest we had for Gen 1 at Gym 4, I had 35 Pokemon. Chris has more than doubled that.
A lot more Pokemon in Johto for sure.
The surprising fact is the average Pokemon level was much higher back then. Chris, you had an average Pokemon level of 31 for Gen 1, compared to now, our highest is Sean at 24 average levels. So that is quite surprising. A lot more Pokemon, a lot less levels.
That sounds exactly what I would expect out of Johto. I'm not surprised that I'm playing so much more this generation because I generally don't have too much time to play video games. And I've noticed recently, I've only played Pokemon Crystal. It doesn't feel like I've had time to play anything else. That's because I've already put in 9 more hours than I did in Gen 1 to this point. This is definitely taking all of my video game time.
Yeah, it's quite fun. I know, earlier on, I wasn't spending that much time on it, but definitely wanted to pick it up this time around. Alright, so for the Johto Battles today, we're going to have me and Chris first. Currently, just to go over our current records, I am first with 4 wins and 2 losses. Then Chris is second with 3 wins and 3 losses. And Sean is sitting last, 2 wins and 4 losses.
I'm kind of excited for this one because this is the last battle before pretty much all of my Pokemon evolve.
Oh shit.
That's all 2 W's. Why not 3 W's, Chris?
Why not?
Wow, I see it's moves. Those are so annoying.
Okay, I guess we'll just see what happens. Resisted.
type.
Well, I'm just going for it.
I don't know what you're doing.
Do you approve of this plan?
No.
That's the only move I got. It keeps going up each attack, right?
It does, but it's resistant to the strongest defensive Pokemon of literally like all time.
Although it's starting to hurt me.
But that's 20 per. Now I can go for the massive attack.
That was all part of his strategy.
Did I just miss?
Oh wow, we're attacking a lot.
I know the last season Chris was talking big game of Taurus, so I had to check him out.
Chris still hasn't used them. He's gonna lose to the Taurus that he never got.
That was really frustrating. I missed 6. I used 6 rollouts total, and I missed 2. What's 2 out of it? 25%, even though there's only a 10% chance of missing. It's 90 accuracy.
You are very unlucky at this game. Wait, Rain Dance?
I didn't realize that weather was introduced in this. I thought it was introduced in Gen 3, but I found out when I was playing last night that there's weather.
Yep. So now my luck's come back. I can't hit all my rollouts, but I can hit all of my hypnosis.
Did you not give your Eevee a nickname, or you're just not sharing the nicknames so we don't know what it's gonna be?
Not sharing it.
Oh, that's super
no.
effective too. Fighting is super effective against normal?
You never knew that, Dustin? It's like one of the biggest ones. Okay, and so for our first match of the day, we went with Dustin versus Chris, and it was a really good game. It came down to both of their last Pokemon, but basically Chris was trying to show off his new Shuckle and using the annoying strategy of wrap and rollout, but he was very unfortunate in that his rollout that he used 6 times missed twice. And Dustin was able to show the power of his Tauros and was able to beat Chris's Shuckle with the Tauros. And basically, Chris then set out his Poliwhirl that did a lot of work with the Rain Dance and the Surf.
Chris's Poliwrath was very imposing. It did take out my Tauros, and it also took out my Croconaw in a surf-on-surf battle. So I had the hard choice of choosing between Magmar or Sudowoodo, and I chose Magmar, and he survived one surf, which allowed me to really turn the tides of this battle. If he took out Magmar, it would have been over for me.
Yep, Dustin was able to win with his Sudowoodo against because Chris only had his Teddy Ursa and his Eevee left against Dustin's Sudowoodo. And if you're keeping score at home, normal's not very effective against rock. So Dustin was able to win just barely with his Sudowoodo, also known as Lieutenant Banyan. Banyan.
I'm very curious what Magmar's stats are, because I had a stab super effective surf against it, and it only lost 65% of its health.
Poliwhirl's special isn't that great either.
Here, I could show you. His HP is pretty high.
85 special defense, but I don't think Poliwhirl has a high special attack, so that's why.
All right, so we are now doing Chris vs Sean.
Yeah, I essentially only have 3 Pokemon because that Eevee is useless.
No, why do you decide to have it in your team for the Morty fight?
Yeah, you could have had your starter Pokemon.
I think it's because it was like, Bayleaf can't really do anything against Morty.
Eevee can't do anything. Literally can't do anything.
Switch train.
I picked Tauros, even though he can't do anything, just to battle you guys with Tauros.
Next battle, or like the next time we face each other, I'll be a lot better.
We have to see if you can keep your spree going, Chris. You're 1-1 so far each week.
Oh, God.
What are you going to do against Ionix?
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do.
What do you think I'm going to do, Chris?
Oh, let's have a water Pokemon now.
Another miss. Wow, Chris.
Ooh.
And you get a crit. Add insult to injury. 3 in a row. I don't know. All right, I'm going to keep going till this hits. All right, finally. Oh, you didn't switch. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to do anything while it's asleep. Oh my god, that did so much damage.
Your Flaffy lost more HP than Magmar did, even though that was super effective. That was crazy.
Oh, no,
You still have a weakness.
But it's still faster, so I can't do anything.
your Poliwhirl's like carrying you.
Did it just sweep?
It was close to sweeping my team too.
For the second battle of the day, we did me against Chris. And it's very sad that I still have a bad weakness to water. Because we started off, I had my Onyx, and Chris had his Teddy Ursa, and he switched into Poliwhirl. He switched into Poliwhirl, and I couldn't do anything. I had my Slowpoke out there, and I was doing confusions and wasn't doing much damage. He eventually got my Slowpoke to fall asleep, and then I decided to try and switch into a Flaffy while he had a Rain Dance up, and Flaffy took the full brunt of a Surf with the boosted Rain Dance, and was also slower than Poliwhirl. So it survived the first hit, but then died from the second hit, and Chris just swept with his Poliwhirl from there. Very sad.
Very sad. Not to mention, I started the battle by missing 3 consecutive hypnosises, which just did the math there. That's a 6.5% chance of that happening.
And it didn't even matter. But now I guess we're on to the final match of the day.
Yep, me versus Sean.
Oh, you knew I was going to leave with Onyx as you saw.
I had some insider knowledge.
Insider trading. Now I lost because, I lost. I literally...
Yeah, when I was watching your guys' game, I was like, all right, what would mess up Sean?
You need an Ampharos. I think next, when we battle next time, a lot of us will have stronger Pokemon.
But still be super slow. That's the only thing.
Well, you're going to have...
very slow team.
You're going to have a Slow King next time, too. That'll be huge.
Oh, 1%! Oh, 1%! And for the final match of the day, it was between me and Dustin. And if you've been noticing, I just had my last battle with Chris, and Dustin watched. So he knew I was leading with my Onyx.
I mean, you could always change it up, in between sessions. I changed it up.
Okay. Yeah, because you knew I was leading with Onyx, so he led with Croconaw. And from there, I kind of knew the odds were against me. I switched into Slowpoke, and he used Bite on his Croconaw, which is super effective against Slowpoke. And so I lost nearly half of its health. And I knew from that point I already lost. Yeah, basically, I tried my hardest to take him down. I couldn't do much. Eventually got to the point where it was Dustin's Croconaw against, I only had my Onyx and my Quilava left. And if you notice, water is super effective against both of those Pokemon. And so I couldn't do anything. I was just smoke screening and praying that he would miss, and he didn't. So I lost again twice.
And one fun note there was we did have a moment where Sean had his Flaffy out and I had my Magmar, and they both got down to 1% health, which was a crazy coincidence.
Very crazy.
So far in our Johto Battles, we now have the records where I'm still in first with 6 wins and 2 losses. Chris has 4 wins and 4 losses. And Sean is 2 and 6 currently. What was it? Pokemon Master has now fallen a peg or 2?
That was the first gen, for 1. For 2, Chris isn't even using his starter for most of these battles.
I have the worst starter.
And Dustin has the best starter, even though Club is a close second. Yeah, I'm definitely handicapped myself with the Onyx on my team. But we'll see if Steelix eventually makes it worth it.
You can always trade him out before Steelix, for our next battle.
Like I keep on saying, I know he sucks in our battles, but in the actual game, he's putting in work. He's really defensive and helping my team out with the coverage. But it just so happens that everyone decides to have water types, which is the biggest weakness of my team.
You just need one. Well, you do have your electric type. So I guess, once you have Ampharos, I think you'll be pretty good.
That brings us a close to this episode. So if you would like to follow us, you can do so at Twitter @The Trainer Trio. Our email is thetrainertriopodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions or stories about your playthroughs. And in our next episode, we will be talking about our experiences leading up to the 5th gym leader. And if you're following us along at home, we are doing it a little bit out of order than the normal walkthroughs. We're going to be facing against the Teacher of Winter's Harshness, Price. Until next time, we are the Trainer Trio signing off. We will be catching you in Mahogany Town, trainers.
Winter is coming. See you next time.